everyone. Oh, I like that. Hi, how is everyone feeling today? All right. I want to welcome you all to Senator Porfio and State Representative Rashid's Townhall meeting. I want to thank Havlicek School, D98, for being so welcoming and accommodating. I don't know if she's in here. I do want to give a special thank you to Simone Adams, who is here helping us on her day off. Yes. And I made a very special promise to her that we will wrap up by 2 p.m. So we're going to try our best here. So thank you, Simone. I want to thank Dr. Mohammed Faraj, the principal at Havlicek, and Dr. Smith, the superintendent, for really helping us come together and going above and beyond for this afternoon for us. So once again, thank you for opening and welcoming your doors to us. I want to thank our partners today who came out, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to visit, but in the gymnasium you will find your restrooms, men's and women's, more boys and girls, and you'll see that reflected in the bearer size, as well as our resource tables, where you'll find some of our partners, Youth Crossroads, Arab American Family Services, Congressman Garcia has a table as well. So thank you all for coming out today. I'm going to go ahead and begin, and as people come in, feel free to just find seats wherever you're comfortable, and then just simple housekeeping. We are not allowed to have food or water or drinks, so please just be mindful of that. The school is incredibly accommodating, so we just want to be respectful to the guidelines of Havlicek School. With that said, I would like to introduce State Representative Rashid, who will give the opening remarks, District 21st State Representative, and after that we will continue and commence the town hall. Thank you.
Does this work? Or this one? Let me do this one. All right. First of all, thank you all so much for joining us today. I've been really excited about the opportunity to engage with all of you, and I want to thank Senator Porfio for joining us in hosting this, and our incredibly special guest, Congressman Garcia, who was able to make it and be with us today, even if for a short period. I want to thank Superintendent Smith and Havlicek for accommodating us. And all the elected officials in the room. I apologize, I don't have a list in front of me. I've seen numerous elected officials. I think maybe I'll come back and acknowledge you in a moment. This is an opportunity to really get a chance to hear from us about what we're doing during session in spring for the legislative session in Illinois. Runs from January through the end of May. We had an important deadline last week for bills to get out of chamber, but we're continuing our work, and we'll be wrapping up by the end of May. So this is an opportunity to explain some of the work that we're doing, and of course, to take your questions, particularly in the really challenging moment that we're in. I don't want to say too much more because I want to get to the actual substance of the town hall and to your questions. Again, really grateful to the Congressman for being able to join us today, and I'll pass it back to Nida. Thank you.
So we're going to commence the town hall, and just a few apologies. Just to provide everyone with a high-level overview, and you'll see it in the presentations. The purpose of today is really for our constituents. It's for our constituents to come out to hear what's happening on the federal level, to hear how it's impacting the state level, and most importantly, for you all to share your questions and as well as your concerns with our elected officials. I'm gonna I'm gonna hand it over actually to Adrian, who will be the first to introduce Congressman Garcia. And actually, I apologize, I didn't actually introduce Adrian, who is my co-moderator. And so please also introduce yourself when you come up, so I do apologize for that. So I'm going to hand it over to my co-moderator, Adrian.
Thank you. So kind. My name is Adrian Calderon. I am the district director for U.S. Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia. I'm so happy to be here with you all. I want to quickly just introduce the congressman. Throughout his career, the Congressman Garcia has been a progressive voice, both as an organizer and as a legislator, fighting to improve the lives of working class neighbors. He is a coalition builder committed to expanding access to quality education, affordable housing, and economic opportunity. I'll leave it there. He'll do plenty speaking on his own part. Please give a big, warm welcome to Congressman Chuy Garcia.
Good afternoon to everyone, Berwyn residents and those who come from afar, like myself, from the city's edge, in a little village. It's great to join all of you. And of course, I want to thank Representative Rashid and Senator Porfio for inviting me. Glad that I could make this town hall meeting. I have an obligation in Elmhurst, so I appreciate the opportunity to go first. And it's a very, of course, challenging time in Washington, across the country, and some of you have already shared some of your anxieties and concerns about what's going on. I will just briefly say that there is too much going on in Washington, D.C., plenty of bad, terrible proposals, from dismantling the Department of Education to Medicaid cuts that the majority party in Washington is figuring out. They've been instructed to find $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid and health care. I don't know how they're going to do that without causing terrible harm to people across the country, regardless of red or blue states. Social Security, in case we thought that was safe and sacred, is experiencing cuts already, with severe cuts in personnel that, in my opinion, will, of course, have all kinds of implications for people receiving benefits or applying for benefits for the first time. And then, of course, there is Medicare, which will be impacted by the Medicaid cuts because the two programs, Medicaid and Medicare, are interdependent. If you mess with one, you will affect the other as well. Sorry to begin with a very brief summary of things that affect us directly in our pockets, but I want to be just very honest with you. Delighted to be here with these two legislators in Springfield who care about this community, who fight for this community, who are very active legislatively and otherwise, and who work collaboratively. So I truly value the relationship and the partnership with both of them. For the record, in this 119 Congress, I am a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, where I've been for the past 60 years, and I am one of the newer members of the Judiciary Committee, so I get a preview to a lot of the bad stuff that has come down the pike and will be coming down the pike as well. I'm also the whip of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the largest caucus in Congress, and of course a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus as well, and a few other caucuses, but I won't belabor the point. I prepared some remarks here to make sure that things did not fall through the cracks, even though it's only been 3 months, not even 100 days yet of this administration. In my opinion, this is one of the most dangerous and chaotic times and congressional sessions in history, certainly greater than any that I've been a part of in the last 3 Congresses, and certainly more than in the previous Trump era. The 119th Congress isn't just witnessing dysfunction, it is watching a coordinated assault on our democracy unfold in real time. House Republicans, backed in some cases too cowardly to act on their conscience and challenge Trump, are waging a relentless campaign to roll back hard-won rights and to dismantle the very foundations of our republic. They have attacked the immigration system, which needs, of course, direly reforming, voting rights, our institutions, and the truth is that this isn't politics as usual. This is, in my opinion, an authoritarian creeping in through the front door. And in order to prevent that, we need to figure out how to unite, how to mobilize, and yes, reach across the aisle. It's the only way that we can do it. We've seen a dangerous escalation of executive overreach from this administration. And let me be clear, these aren't just partisan disagreements. They're dangerous attacks against our Constitution and against, of course, our democracy. Just a case that is in the news that I'm sure you've seen and hearing about, the case of a gentleman from the state of Maryland who was deported to El Salvador and in prison, despite the fact that the Supreme Court, in a unanimous ruling, those are very rare these days, directed the administration to bring him back so that he could undergo the due process. In another case of Mohsen Madawi, a legal permanent residency and an organizer, of course, of Palestinian rights at Columbia University, was wrongfully detained without cause and is also in detention. President Trump has issued executive orders ending birthright citizenship and dismantling diversity programs. He's turned over sensitive federal data to private corporations, and Elon Musk's Doge operation, merging public power with private interests in ways that we've never seen before. In my opinion, this is corruption at its worst, and it's deliberate. There's a slashing of the federal workforce, crippling agencies, and millions of Americans relying on basic things like the VA, the IRS, the Department of Education, Department of Labor. This isn't about efficiency. In my opinion, this is about sabotage. And now, leaders across our state, including the governor, are warning that critical infrastructure projects are at risk. Roads, bridges, public transit, water systems, projects that provide good-paying jobs and service to millions of our communities are on the chopping block. How do I know? Many of these initiatives, coupled with the work that the legislature and the governor have done in Illinois, came through the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee as we set out to modernize our infrastructure across the country. Federal grants for nonprofits. I know there are nonprofit people in the group here in the crowd tonight. Universities, museums, and cultural programs are frozen. This isn't just bad governance. It's political extortion and it's blackmail. An unconstitutional abuse of power aimed at giving power to the billionaires leading working families in the cold. This hurts union workers, students relying on financial assistance, and families on Medicaid. It's a direct attack on our communities, and my office has been flooded with calls from constituents asking what will happen to my job, what will happen to my health care. And now, of course, the Trump administration is coming after our right to vote. Women, beware, especially. Our election system, as we know and trust, may never be the same. It's being done under the guises that people who are not U.S. citizens are voting. That has been disproven time and time again. But just last week, the House of Representatives, I voted against it, passed the SAFE Act, a voter suppression bill that would place a burden on military voters, married women, because they have to show proof, and there are many who have changed their names. They're not the names on their birth certificate, who have hyphenated names. Sorry, you'll have to re-register as well and show proof of your birth name. Rural voters, voters of color, and millions of other eligible Americans, all while collectively costing Americans, of course, billions of dollars, and a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. It's a blatant attack on voting rights and a page straight out of the authoritarian playbook. This administration isn't working to help everyday Americans. You see who is in charge. 13 billionaires in the cabinet, and of course, the tech giants and other billionaires were at the very prominently featured at the swearing-in ceremony. And that's why I've been fighting in Congress, in the courts, and even in popular mobilizations like that with, 2 weeks ago, where I know some of you participated in. My father was a contractual worker. He was deported, and that's why I know a little bit about the immigration system and about bad immigration policy as well. Mexicans, like other immigrants, have been conveniently used for their labor, and we're seeing history repeat itself. And that's why I support the repeal of the Alien Enemies Act, a law from the 1700s. Let us not forget that this was the law that was used to hold Japanese Americans in those facilities, in those detention centers that some have come to call concentration camps. I voted no on the bills that attempt to weaponize immigration, to criminalize immigrants, because there are, in my opinion, none of them provide any new authorities that do not exist in current immigration laws as well. And of course, we're seeing blatant misuse of power, kidnappings of people because of their free speech activities, tattoos, or because they're wearing Chicago Bulls gear. This is a dangerous abuse of power. I've also fought against the administration's illegal attempts to strip green cards like that of Mahmoud Khalil. I stood alongside Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife, demanding the release from the El Salvador prison where he is being held, and to comply, for the Trump administration to comply with the Supreme Court directive. We've seen this happen time and time again, and that's why I've introduced again in this Congress the Protecting Sensitive Locations Act in Congress to make sure that our schools, our hospitals, our clinics, our churches, and community centers are safe places where people can live their lives without fear. I'm also a co-sponsor of a variety of other pieces of legislation. My office has also participated. Some of you have asked, what are you doing? What are your colleagues doing in Congress? We've joined over 100 letters to President Trump, to his cabinet, to directors and heads of departments and agencies, asking and engaging in oversight activities and roles, not just to record, in many instances, our disagreement, but to organize pressure to support legal challenges and show others that they're not alone. We have been active in condemning Trump's attempts to dismantle the Department of Education, the Office of English Language Acquisition, urging the Federal Trade Commission, the Federal Watchdog Organization, to use its powers to break up corporate monopolies and lower costs for working families, using the continuation of Head Start programs, which provide basic services like education and nutrition for kids in need. I've also joined in 6 amicus briefs. I don't know if there are attorneys in the room. Is it amici or amicus briefs? Amicus? Okay, I wasn't sure about that. I've seen amici, and I'm not sure. I don't major in Italian myself. But they've been related to immigration, to consumer protection, reproductive rights, and of course more. We cannot let fear and misinformation paralyze us. And that's why my district and office have continued to empower our community by coordinating monthly citizenship workshops. We've done 3 every month. Partner for DACA workshop, those who hold that status. Know Your Rights workshops. We've done 8 virtual town halls. We've done 2. We've attended 14 press conferences. We've joined labor and allies at rallies as well. And that's where I'm headed to in Elmhurst in a little while. And in partnership with our community organizations, of course, and elected officials, attorneys, church leaders, we've been able to fight for the release of our neighbor from Cicero, Jose Gregorio Gonzalez, who was in detention, and reunite him with his brother who desperately needs a kidney transfer so that he can help save his life. In a world of chaos, yes, round of applause. This is a reminder that our communities are resilient, and of course that we must keep fighting. I will pause here because I'd like the opportunity to take a few questions now, and of course I'll try to stick around till about 1 o'clock and then head out to Elmhurst.
So, sir, we have a few questions that people have written down. Mike Waters from Indivisible wants to know, what are you in Congress doing about Trump's violation of the Constitution and disregard of court orders?
Excellent question. I think I partly addressed it. We are pushing back and fighting through every avenue possible, including filing Friends of the Court briefs. We participated in press conference calling out. I attended a rally at the Department of Labor pushing back against the raid by Elon Musk and his underlings as well to dismantle that department. We stood with people who are in the throes of really terrible executive orders, and of course, in my opinion, pushing back, participating in local expressions of opposition, in raising our voices democratically, small d, very important, and I think it's how we're going to help those who need such help grow a spine and stand up for the Constitution, our democracy, and of course the rule of law. I do want to recommend to you an article that I think appears today in the New York Times by David Brooks, certainly not a flaming liberal or a radical, that calls for the creation of civic movements, non-partisan efforts to stand up for the Constitution and the rule of law and protect institutions that are critical to any democracy, but especially our democracy here.
In follow-up to that question, Marie from Riverside is asking, what does Congress need to do to begin impeachment proceedings against Trump?
I think Congress needs to stiffen its spine, but we also need more Senator Lisa Murkowski's of the world to come forward. We need other Republican members of the Senate and the House to revisit the Constitution, to look at history, and to learn from the lesson that other countries have experienced, from what occurred in Germany to what has occurred in other countries that have gone down the path of authoritarian rule. Define the courts, starting with the U.S. Supreme Court, will tell all of us if we have already entered a constitutional crisis or not. Because the Supreme Court doesn't have an army to enforce. The other federal courts do not have an army, and either we're going to be a nation of laws or we will slide into authoritarianism.
Congressman, question from Lieutenant Chris Martin. Will you be joining Rep. Maxine Dexter in going to El Salvador to demand the release of Senor Orrego Garcia?
I am ready to do that. We have been in contact with Senator Cory Booker, who has also volunteered to lead a delegation. I am watching the news reports to see if something comes from Senator Van Hollen's visit to El Salvador and his meeting with Orrego Garcia, and to see if that will result in something or not. This morning, the Supreme Court issued, it wasn't a unanimous directive, but once again reiterated that these mass deportations of alleged criminals, that most of the research that's been done on who's been deported have shown that many of these individuals who have been forcibly removed and deported without due process are actually people who don't have what is alleged that they do have, which is criminal records, or that they've committed heinous crimes as well. We're not here to protect people who've committed terrible acts of violence or otherwise, but we are here to uphold the rule of law.
Last one, sir, from Ronald Villagomez of Berwyn. What financial impact will affect veterans during this administration?
The proposed cuts to the VA and Doge's tampering with the VA have already produced significant terminations of personnel in VA facilities. At Hines, we had, before the joint session speech that Donald Trump gave last month, they had already terminated 20 individuals. That is why my guest at that gathering at the joint session of Congress address by President Trump was a union steward from the Hines facility who is an Iraq veteran, has been working there, and is the union steward for SEIU. I felt that that was one of the ways to show the American people what kinds of cuts are being implemented and how they are affecting a cross-section of people who are being terminated through an email with no explanation of the cause for their termination. These are people who are civil servants, who are career service, and for the most part are professionals. They also deserve a fair HR hearing and a reason for their termination. It's why we have stood at press conferences with the heads of those unions, and in many instances with workers who have participated in class action lawsuits to prevent their terminations and further cuts without approval from the U.S. Congress, as the Constitution calls for. Thank you very much.
And please remember, if we did not get to your question and it is specifically for the Congressman, be sure to include your email address, and our office and staff will get back to you with the response as quickly as we can. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, State Senator Porfio. Mike was born and raised in Bridgeview in a working class family and union household. He is a Navy veteran who has served for over 25 years on active duty and has 25 years of total uniformed service. He is deployed multiple times, including to Afghanistan. He also has a background in, he has also been sent to Afghanistan several times. Mike has been a resident of the 11th District his entire life, and his family has roots in the district for over 75 years. He and his wife, Alana, have 2 daughters, Gabriela, Jacqueline, and 2 dogs, Razzo and Sona. Please help me welcome State Senator Porfio.
Thank you all. Thanks for being here today. I want to thank Congressman Garcia and Representative Rashid for their continued partnership and collaboration, making sure we're serving this area and region well, both in Springfield and in DC. So, Mike Porfio, I represent the 11th State Senate District, kind of half city, half suburban, sort of Midway Airport area of the city, and some of the surrounding suburbs, including Cicero, Berwyn, Brookfield, LaGrange Park, LaGrange, Countryside, Hodgkins, Summit, Bridgeview, Justice, Bedford Park, Burbank, and a few others. In the State Senate, I'm the chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee. I'm the vice chair of the Transportation Committee. I also serve on the Labor Committee, the Higher Education Committee, the Education Committee, and the Public Safety and Infrastructure Committee. I think it's pretty reflective of also some of the priorities of the 11th District. In the previous GA, I also served on local governments and the Financial Institutions Committee. Some things I just wanted to highlight related to that work. One is I have the honor of also chairing the Breakthrough Therapies for Veteran Suicide Prevention Advisory Council. And right now, what we're looking at is providing a framework and clinical trials for some of these breakthrough therapies that have shown incredible efficacy in combating severe PTSD and preventing veteran suicide. Veteran suicide is a national emergency. We have to act with a sense of urgency on the matter. We've reserved some money in previous state budgets, fighting for money in this state budget. Because I believe that this is an area where Illinois can be a national leader in this space. The other exciting thing about this is I think it will start here, and we'll be able to take some of these treatments, this framework, to provide for other areas of severe trauma and PTSD. So exciting work there, and look forward to continuing to lead the charge on that. On the Education Committee, one thing I want to highlight, and I continue to have good conversations with stakeholders and constituents on this, but it's the legislation that would allow community colleges to offer bachelor's degrees. I think this is very exciting because we're touching upon college affordability and accessibility, right? And a lot of times our community colleges are able to respond to the local needs and local economies in a quicker way than our four-year universities. So I think this is exciting legislation that I look forward to championing. I think we have to work through exactly what it looks like, and especially make sure we're delivering, targeting skill sets in areas that have shortages. But again, I think a major line of effort that will help with college accessibility and affordability, and also making sure we're setting up our next generation for success, for head of household jobs, good careers, and the like. Next slide. This General Assembly, I passed 8 pieces of legislation, continuing to work on some others, and getting some bills from the House to be the Senate sponsor. But one that I want to highlight was Senate Bill 1742, also known as the Drew Price Act, or Rooftop Safety for First Responders. This was a big initiative of the Chicago Firefighters, Local 2, the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association, and others. And obviously in response to some terrible tragedies, including a firefighter, Drew Price, who fell to his death. And this would make sure that those roof openings are better secured with guardrails, and also that inspections and inventories are being made so our firefighters and first responders can be better prepared to the calls that they're responding on. So as they're answering those calls, again, giving them added protections, it will definitely save lives. I know Representative Rashid will touch upon this more, but I filed Senate Bill 2462, which is the Senate companion bill for the Illinois Human Rights Advocacy Protection Act, an important piece of legislation that I'm proud to partner with Representative Rashid on. And just two others I wanted to highlight from last year. We passed Senate Bill 3479, which was a consumer fraud protection for veterans and accessing veterans' benefits. I believe Illinois has the strongest and is the gold standard, best in class in terms of providing consumer fraud protection for veterans, getting their veterans' benefits that they've earned through their service and sacrifice. Happy to make sure that we're a national leader on that front, and it was recognized by the VFW for those efforts. Also, Senate Bill 2601, which provided some protections to renters for flooding. So it mandated that landlords disclose previous flooding history. Obviously, our region has been hit with flooding quite a bit. This is one thing that our office has heard a lot about in terms of the biggest impact, most severe impact. So some added layers of protection, and also making sure that we're getting money in the budget to address infrastructure needs, to also alleviate flooding and flooding concerns. Next question. In May, we're going to be talking a lot about the budget and some of those priorities. One is to continue to fund the evidence-based funding formula for public education, making sure that we're more equitably funding public education. And also we have to make sure that the EBF is also providing property tax relief to our taxpayers, right? So our schools are a big part of the property taxes. The state has to step up our share of that to provide real relief to working families. Public transportation. So I'm the vice chair of public transportation. Public transportation is a huge district, huge part of the district between Midway Airport, Belt Rail, Chicago, obviously rail throughout the district. But public transportation, we're talking about the RTA, Regional Transportation Authority, with CTA, PACE, and Metra. They're facing a funding cliff, and we have to address that. We have to address that, and we have to make sure that this is pro-labor, this is pro-environment, and we have to make sure that we have a public transportation system that's built by labor, operated by labor, and for working families. There's a saying in the military, amateurs talk strategy, professionals talk logistics. And I always say, you can have the best health care, the best education, the best jobs, but if people aren't able to get there, so we have to make sure we have a better connected, better reliable, safer, more frequent public transportation system. We have to invest in that. It's one of the best things we could do for quality of life of our residents and the district. And there's a lot going on in the world, but some of those things of getting back to basics and delivering good service, good government to people is how we rebuild that confidence in government, right? So some of these cuts is to erode government. It's erode delivery of service. And we have to position ourselves to say, no, we're going to stand up for a good government, a strong government that's providing good services to our residents. The buses are going to run on time. We're going to fix the streets. Those things we have to get done. And I think this is a huge space, public transportation, and that investment in public transportation is going to create a real return on investment to our state and our region. Tier 2 pensions. We have to address Tier 2 pensions. One is to make sure we're recruiting and retaining good public service employees. We can't say we're pro-teacher, pro-nurse, pro-police officers, firefighters until there's a price tag, right? We want to be able to recruit and retain good public servants into careers. And, right now, we have issues with that. We have issues filling critical needs. We have issues filling care providers in Illinois veterans homes. So again, addressing Tier 2 pensions, making sure we find a funding formula that's sustainable and works, making that investment to make sure that our public servants are in careers where they're recognized and they're appreciated, and again, showing that return on investment by good delivery service, good government to the region and to the district. Continue the Rebuild Illinois program, investing in infrastructure. Again, as we brace for impact and wait for some of those cuts to infrastructure, that work can't stop, right? The 79th Street's in major need of repair. We've been talking about the 65th and Harlem grade separation that we all championed, have been championing. I've been hearing about that since I was a kid, quite honest, and we're getting close to that. So we have to continue to make sure we're securing state funding again in public infrastructure and investments in our communities. And then, of course, continue to bring back tax dollars to districts for public education, public safety, good parks, good libraries, and everything else. And here's some links for some more information, how to contact me in my office. Never hesitate if we can be of service. And I think that's, Rep. Rashid will be next. Look forward to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Porfio. It is an absolute privilege to introduce State Representative District 21, Abdel Nasser Rashid. Abdel Nasser Rashid's career has been focused on fighting for working families and building a strong middle class. He has a Bachelor's of Arts from Harvard University and a Master of Business Administration in Finance and Economics from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. His legislative priorities include property tax relief, which you'll hear about, affordable housing, environmental justice, and consumer protection. He is the co-chair of Illinois Generative AI and Natural Language Processing Task Force. Rep. Rashid is the first Palestinian American to serve an Illinois legislator. Representative Rashid lives in Bridgeview with his beautiful wife and 4 children. Welcome to the stage, Representative Rashid.
All right, thank you, Nida, and thank you, Senator. Good afternoon again, everyone. And thank you, Congressman Garcia and his team for your partnership on this. Before I move on, I want to welcome the elected officials in the room. We have Berwyn's 5th Ward Alderman, Rob Pagoan. Thank you, Rob, for joining us. North Commissioner Angel Avalos. North Berwyn School District Member Melissa Morrison. Berwyn Park District Commissioner Anna Espinoza. And City Clerk-elect Letty Garcia. I hope I didn't miss anyone. Please raise your hand if I missed an elected official in the room. I apologize if I did. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. My name is Abdel Nasser Rashid. I just started a few months ago my 2nd term in the Illinois General Assembly, and I'm really honored to be here with you today. I serve on 6 committees. I'm the vice chair of the Small Business, Technology, and Entrepreneurship Committee. I serve on one of the Illinois House's budget committees called General Services. It oversees a lot of our state agencies. I serve on the Cybersecurity, Data Analytics and IT Committee, the Energy and Environment Committee, Housing, and Transportation. And you'll see some themes that are repeated in this discussion. Before I go too much into some of the things I'm working on in Springfield, I do want to touch on the moment that we're in with not just chaos at the federal level, but I believe, constitutional crisis that we're in and the authoritarianism that I think has taken hold now. I know people may want to measure their language a little bit, understandably, like are we on the path to authoritarianism? I think when you abduct folks off the street and defy Supreme Court orders, we are living in pretty authoritarian times. And it's a real challenge to identified all the ways in which we need to fight back against that, and I will share some of those ways that I'm working on, and encourage folks to do everything they can. Each of us has a role. I happen to be, and the elected officials in the room happen to have particular platforms, but every one of us has a role, whether it's calling and emailing our offices, whether it's showing up to protests, whether it's, Indivisible, for example, has a daily action you can take, maybe to organizing your neighbors, organizing your friends. There's a myriad of ways every person can do something to fight back. I don't think we should allow ourselves to feel helpless in the face of these incredible challenges that we're facing. One way one concrete way that I am advocating to fight back against Donald Trump is to actually give our Attorney General more resources to fight back in the courts. Because all these lawsuits and the fight in the courts is one of the most important ones. Bigger issue if the courts get defied. We're in sort of uncharted territory at that point, but the courts remain an absolutely critical realm for fighting back, and the Attorney General's office for the state of Illinois is one of the primary drivers of that fight, and so making sure that they're well-resourced to hire the attorneys and to take the fight to Donald Trump is something that I support in our state budget, to increase their budget. Okay, that's good for that. Oh yeah, there was one more program, which is the Access to Justice program that the state created several years ago, which provides immigration legal services to folks. So a lot of organizations throughout the state get support to provide help with folks naturalizing, getting their green cards, and other immigration benefits. That's another thing that I think we need to be supporting as well. So, you've heard this from me before. You've talked to me. One of my primary goals in elected office, and one of my North Stars, is economic relief. I think the wealth gap, the income inequality in our country has gotten so out of hand, and it's a responsibility for us to try to reduce that as much as possible and really put money back in people's pockets. A lot of that needs to happen at the federal level, but we have important tools at the state level as well. I was appointed by Speaker Welch a few months ago to the Property Tax Working Group to help us solve some of our property challenges with the outrageous property tax bills that many of you are facing. And that is, I can go on for an hour about this, but it is really symptomatic of our inequitable tax system in the state, partly catalyzed by, one of the genesis of it is our constitution, the state constitution, which requires a flat income tax that cannot distinguish between folks who are working class, middle class, or wealthy. So everyone here pays a 4.95% income tax, whether you're making $30,000 a year, whether you're making $3 million a year. And that's just completely inequitable. Most states in the country have a graduated income tax. In 2020, unfortunately, they got voted down on the constitutional amendment to change that, but it remains a serious challenge for our state because we're unable to essentially, on the income side, which is an important source of taxation, to go out to tax the ultra-wealthy and corporations at the rates that they should be taxed at. So that creates issues. And what it leads to is an over-dependence on the local level on property taxes to fund education, which obviously is extremely important. I'm a strong supporter of public education. I want to make sure every child, regardless of where they live, has access to quality education. And so we face this tension. We want strong schools, which comes from property taxes. At the same time, it should be the state that's investing. That's the primary funder of that education. So there are things that we can do in the short run to make sure that our property tax system is more equitable. That's part of what the work of the working group is. But really, the only permanent fix to that is a more equitable tax structure. That's really the only permanent fix, and that will take a lot of effort and some time. I also introduced legislation to provide renters with tax credits. Rents have gone through the roof. The housing crisis is being exploited by corporations when we've seen private equity groups and hedge funds buying single-family homes across the country, and we're not seeing enough supply get built, and so rents are going up, and when people have to spend 40 and 50% of their income on rents, that is a structural problem in our society. I also introduced legislation. This is modest but important. Sometimes you take the little wins. Just to provide on your Illinois tax return to be able to get a deduction on healthcare premiums that you pay. I believe that's already doable. You can do that on the federal level, but on the state taxes, if you are paying healthcare premiums, why not provide that deduction on your income taxes, especially if you believe, like I do, that healthcare should be a right and not a privilege. Also, you've seen occasionally in the past sales tax holidays on school supplies during the back-to-school season. Another modest but not insignificant source of relief for working families, just to be able to make permanent what we've seen done occasionally in the past, which is a 10-day period where any school supplies that you buy in August is either tax-free or significantly reduced taxes. And then a really unique issue that I encountered that I didn't know I'd really be stepping into, but when I got elected in 2022, I went and did a tour of a mobile home park in my district in Hodgkins. And I saw the conditions that people were living in, and I heard the stories of our neighbors in Hodgkins and in Countryside, and there's one just outside of my district in Bridgeview as well. And these folks own their mobile homes, but they pay rent on the lot, right? And what's happened because of the housing crisis is private equity groups, including Sam Zell's group, have been buying these mobile home parks across the country and again skyrocketing the rents. Now these folks own the homes. Oftentimes they have mortgages usually on predatory terms because they don't qualify for a traditional mortgage. They pay their utilities. They're responsible homeowners. But they can't control the fact that the landlords keep increasing the rent on their lot, the rent on the lot that it sits on, and they can't leave if they can't pay the rent. Their home is essentially fixed. Mobile is a misnomer. It's actually not very mobile. You can't really pick it up and move it very easily once the utilities are connected, or it could be extremely costly. It could cost over $10,000 to move it, and then find another place where that would allow you to come in that may be more affordable. So I introduced legislation last term and again this year that would cap the rent increases that those landlords can charge. It's being opposed by, of course, the mobile home park landlords as well as by the realtors, but we're going to keep pushing. So these are some things I'm doing in terms of economic relief. The last point on there is that a lot of this stuff and other things are really a part of the state budget in terms of tax policy and relief, and so I'll talk about that a little bit later. Sorry, it's not moving on to the next slide. Give me one moment here. There we go. Thank you. I've also introduced several pieces of legislation aiming to tackle corruption in government. In the news recently has been the Mike Madigan trial and the issues with ComEd, where they essentially paid him money, or they bribed him through jobs and other things in order to get certain legislative benefits. I introduced legislation that would prohibit public utility companies from donating to state and local government. It's one important. These public utilities, ComEd and Encore People's Gas, are making incredible amounts of money, and then they're pouring money back into the political system in order to get favorable terms. And I think we should stop that. Second is a bill that that description's actually. Oh wait, this is not the ethics. 1630. Ignore the text on the bottom one, but there's a second bill that provides the legislative inspector general with more authority over us as legislators. So in Illinois, the legislative inspector general needs to get permission from a legislative commission in order to even release findings. Let's say there is a complaint, and they find that a person, a legislator, has committed a serious breach of ethics. Before they can release that to the public, they need to go and get permission. The legislative inspector general needs to go and get permission to release that finding. I think that's not right. In the city of Chicago, the legislative inspector general there does not need that kind of permission. In the county board, they don't need that kind of permission. But when it comes to the legislature, they do. I think I filed legislation to change that. Senator Porfio touched on this, but 10 years ago, Illinois was unfortunately one of the first states in the country to, under Governor Rauner's administration, to pass legislation that weaponizes our pension fund to penalize companies that boycott Israel. It's a little bit of a complex kind of sentence, but Ben & Jerry's, is the best example. Ben & Jerry's decides that they're concerned about human rights for Palestinians, and so they say, you know what, we're not going to sell ice cream in Israeli settlements because, as a matter of principle. Well, as a result of that decision, Illinois' pension fund was required by law to divest from their parent company, Unilever. Over $100 million pulled. $100 million is not chump change. And the message that that sends to companies that want to do the right thing and that want to stand up for human rights is Illinois will come after you by law if you do that. So I introduced legislation, and Senator Porfio introduced the same legislation in the Senate that would repeal that law and put Illinois back on the right side of history. I passed 8 bills out of the House this year. They've made their way to the Senate. 2 of them are related to public health, and particularly to PFAS, the forever chemicals that end up in our bodies and in our water. These chemicals, which industry has basically gotten away with for decades with putting in everyday products, they bioaccumulate, meaning your body doesn't have a natural way to get rid of them, and they are been found to be cancer-causing. Thyroid issues are particularly harmful to children. And so there are 2 bills, one dealing with everyday products, one dealing with wastewater, that I passed to help mitigate the environmental impact and, of course, the public health impact of these bills. Next step is to work to get them out of the Senate. I passed several bills on education. One of them is an intersection of education and artificial intelligence to protect our community colleges from AI replacing instructors. I got some questions in committee like, is this really necessary? Is that happening? It is necessary. It is necessary. They are currently experimenting with this, right? And we don't want to wait until the first community college comes and says, oh, actually, we're now going to, because of budget reasons or other things, we are going to now bring in this fancy AI thing to replace our community college instructors. We got to preempt that to make sure we're protecting the quality of education. Students who are paying tuition and going to community college expecting to get instruction should be able to talk to a real person. And instructors aren't just educators, they're also mentors. They also identify issues that students may be facing and can help students through some of the most challenging times of their lives. So this isn't just about who can teach a particular subject better, though, of course, our instructors should be respected with that right, but it's about the quality of education overall. I also passed a bill that builds on legislation I passed 2 years ago, expanding access to dual language education in our state. This has academic benefits to students. It has economic benefits for our economy. Very importantly, cultural preservation. I want my kids to learn Arabic. I know many immigrant families want their children to speak Spanish, to speak Chinese, to hold on to the heritage of the country where their families come from. And so this bill helps to advance that goal. And then finally, Illinois has taken great steps in recent years to make our education curriculum more inclusive, including passing the TEACH Act a few years ago, which requires teaching of Asian American history. This year, we tacked on to that requirement that a basic unit of instruction, it could be minimum, it could be modest, but at least a little bit on Arab American history. Illinois has one of the largest Arab American populations in the country, and this bill would help students feel more seen in their classrooms. And finally, on these bills, I'm a tech guy. I have a background in computer science, and I also think our government should adapt to provide better service. I passed 2 bills. One of them that, for example, makes it easier to accept electronic signatures. You shouldn't have to mail in or scan. It's a little bit of a mess in some parts of government how to get things like as basic as electronic signatures in. So 2 bills to modernize our government technology so that it can better serve people, as well as extending the artificial intelligence task force that I co-chair. That wrapped up its work at the end of last year. We need legislation to continue that work because AI isn't going anywhere. Okay, next up, just running through this quickly, these bills that go to the Senate, I'm going to work with senators and others on making sure that they can hopefully reach the governor's desk. There are going to be Senate bills that come to the House, work on those to make sure that we're moving forward, continue our work on to extract Illinois from its shameful oppression of Palestinians, and work on a state budget that's socially and fiscally responsible. Speaking of the budget, I talked about this, but economic relief is number 1 for me. As I eye the budget, as I look at my advocacy, now I'm one out of 78 Democrats in the Illinois House who has a voice on it, and what I'm going to continue to do with my colleagues and with the Speaker and our budgeteers is to emphasize that we really need true economic relief. and identify, and I'm not afraid to say progressive revenue. That means taxes, and that means taxes on the wealthy. And so we need to if we're afraid of the word taxes, like a lot of elected officials are, we're going to continue the status quo, which is to nickel and dime working families, relying on sales taxes, which hurt everybody, relying on property taxes, which hurt everybody, relying on the flat income tax, which doesn't distinguish between poor or rich, right? And so we have to be willing to say, no, we do need an equitable tax system that does involve taxing the wealthy at the rates that they should be taxed so that we can provide that relief. So that's my eye toward the budget. Education funding, as the Senator said, in continuing our investment in education, which also has the benefit of providing property tax relief, addressing our public transportation challenges, which I won't repeat, as the Senator eloquently described. We're having a serious fiscal challenge with our public transit systems, losing funding, and making sure that as we fix that, we're also taking into account the environmental considerations, fixing our Tier 2 pension system, which currently essentially deters people from joining public service. So we have to do something about that, and of course continuing to bring money back to the district. Some information about reaching out to my office on here, and I'll conclude there. Thank you all very much.
I'm going to hand it over to Adrian, who will coordinate the question and answer part.
So we still have some written down questions which we will attempt to get to, but we also want you all to be able to put your own personal voice behind it. So if you have a question for either of our representatives here, please raise your hand and I'll head on over. Right over here. First question. Who is it directed to? Where are you from?
I'm from Berwyn. This is for Representative Rashid because we were just talking about education and local funding and stuff like that. This is a big issue for me. We've worked a lot on funding for schools in District 100 here. So how about researching and looking into how we don't fund our public schools with local property taxes? There are other states such as Massachusetts which has developed a different system where everything goes into a bucket and then money is sent out as needed to whatever districts. Why are we not doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the state actually took a major step forward in 2017, that went into effect in 2018 on the evidence-based funding formula, which did inject significantly more equity into how public schools are funded. The problem is that it will take more than another decade before schools reach a point where they're at 90% adequacy funding. One of the things that I spoke to some of the superintendents when I first got into office, and I said, how is the evidence-based funding formula working for you? And I know in District 100, for example, they went from, one metric is the adequacy funding. They went from 46% before EBF to 71% within a matter of, I think, 4 or 5 years. Now, 71% is not 90. That's not okay. But it is significantly better than 46. And so the EBF formula is making meaningful progress. But we still have a long way to go. And so to answer your question in terms of other things, we have some structural challenges. Our constitutional flat tax requirement is a structural challenge that I support bringing that to a vote again and really advocate and making sure that we are putting the resources behind a campaign to pass that constitutional amendment. And there are numerous other things that I'm working on in the legislature to identify sources of revenue that we can inject back into education as well as other priorities. For example, digital ads taxes. Significant online activity in digital ads. We all see them on Facebook and Instagram and anywhere we go on the internet, there's these ads. They're untaxed. They're untaxed. Maryland is taxing them. And it's so far survived constitutional challenges. And so I'm an advocate for introducing a digital ads tax in our budget, for example. So there are things like that I think we need to do.
Okay, Senator Porfio, do you want to add anything before we move on to the next question?
I would probably just reiterate a lot of those points. I know there's I think it said joint resolution, constitutional amendment, I think it's number 4, filed by Senator Martwick that I'm a co-sponsor of, but that would bring the progressive graduate income tax back to the ballot. So again, I think we have to look at all the different ways that we could bring working families relief and make sure we're making that investment in public education.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What's your name, where are you from, and who is it geared towards?
Hi, Representative Rashid. My name is Brandy Love. I'm independent journalist residing in Berlin. We met at the Berlin Juneteenth Fest. I actually have 3 questions. You have them.
Okay.
Okay. You want me to read them?
You ask the question you want the answer to the most.
What we're going to do, I want to meet with you to get a petition started to implement some type of rent cap and the fees that they can charge you when you're applying for apartments and the things that they can't do because it's out of control now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very important question. Actually, my colleague, Representative Nabila Zayed, just passed the bill out of the Illinois House that tackles move-in fees that are required when landlords rent apartments. And so I didn't know a whole lot about this, but learned about it over the last few months. But it could be outrageous move-in fees that are charged, and so we are capping those. I believe last legislative session we took action on online fees that are charged by and I don't remember if it passed one chamber or both, but on just the add-on fees, and we call them junk fees that are everywhere. You see at the end of the bill, so you're supposed to pay $50 for something, but by the time it's time to pay, you're paying $68. Right? You see that in food service delivery in a number of contexts, but one of them is the rental market as well. One of the challenges with the broader rental market is property taxes, and so we need to make sure to get rent under control. But landlords, if someone owns a 2-flat or a 4-flat and their property taxes are doubling, it's really hard to say you can't increase your rent more than 5% or 7%. So we've got to account for that in some way. And one of the main solutions to our housing crisis is more building. We need more supply of housing in general and affordable housing in particular, which means tackling zoning laws that essentially restrict building to single-family homes. I support making it much more permissive to build multifamily apartments, to build larger structures to accommodate more housing.
Okay. Next question. Oh, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is, not only do we have to support affordable housing, we also have to support the efforts for affordable home ownership, right? We have to make sure that, there's some great programs on the southwest side of Chicago where they're taking vacant lots and partnering to make sure that, families can own homes with good terms on a mortgage, and again, create generational wealth. So I think those efforts on affordable housing and rent are much needed. But I think the other thing is we also have to make sure that we're promoting affordable home ownership, because I think a lot of times what's happening is corporations and others are buying the supply that's out there and skewing that demand. So I think we also have to focus on affordable home ownership.
And going off of that, another question from Bonnie is, can you tell us about SB 1862, Property Homestead Act? The last she saw, it was sent to assignments. She's wondering, what is the status and what's your position?
To give a little bit more on what that is. I think one thing we've talked about is, again, that relief to homeowners and working families. And I think it's throughout the state, it's throughout the county, it's throughout the city, but very salient in our region, where you have kind of what I would consider long-term homeowners who are getting squeezed, right? So They're not seniors yet, so they don't get that senior freeze. But what's happening is, if you bought your home maybe, 10, 12, 15 years ago at a certain price point, and even with a good career, good income, 10 years later, as those assessments go up and, there's development happening in the neighborhood and in the area, those taxes are squeezing middle class and working families, right? There's a lot of people who, quite frankly, are paying just as much in escrow and taxes. We also have to look at that home insurance piece of it too to keep that maintained, as they are in principal and interest, right? So I really think there's some, property taxes when you look at a levy and making sure we get that equation right, because you want to make sure there's some balance. But what's happening with some of those people is they're getting squeezed and taxed because they're falling in what I would say is like this gray area in their lives, right? And a lot of times that's exactly when you need that relief the most, right? When you're raising your family and you're trying to save for education or college and all those other things. So sometimes we have to bring that relief to families when they need it the most. So again, look forward to trying to figure out the best way to address that problem. I think there's a couple levels of that. The 10,000-foot view of more progressive, equitable taxing, but then on property taxes, making sure we're addressing how we're applying that levy, and again, the state stepping up its portion on public education is a big part of that. So there's a lot of lines of effort to accomplish that goal, but we have to continue to engage and work on that solution.
Thank you. Your name, where you're from, and who it's directed to.
Both gentlemen. My name is Anthony Harris. I reside in Merwin, Illinois. I'm a retired forensic scientist from the U.S. Department of Justice. Right now, we're seeing many of our national institutions being destroyed. Amongst them, Department of Education, also Social Security. Employees who are federal employees there now are going to be gagged and restricted in what they can say. However, amongst us, there are many, many retired federal employees. And we understand the rules, the regulations, and the systems. We understand those institutions. More importantly, we cannot be gagged. I would like to urge that there be a volunteer organization of retired federal employees to consolidate their knowledge of these institutions and to provide assistance through your offices to residents of Illinois and other states. This way, when Trump and Musk tried to gag and destroy Social Security, you'd have an army of volunteers who would be able to help people navigate the system, and also, more importantly, explain to them why it's being destroyed, how it's being destroyed, and that this is not a defect of Social Security, but an intentional effort to destroy our social welfare system by the billionaire class. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think that's a perfect example of people organizing amongst themselves based on their own experience and knowledge and talent. And so thank you for offering that. And any other federal employees or retired federal employees, go talk to Tony so you can join him in that important project. I wanted to just say something on the previous question. You'll have to excuse us for maybe not knowing the specific bill numbers. I just looked up, there are 6,600 bills that were filed between the House and the Senate this year. But that bill, SB 1862, has to do with a long-term homeowner exemption, so folks who've been living in their homes for decades. And that's really important. A really important issue that I actually was working on when I was in Cook County before being elected to office as well. If you bought your home 30 years ago and now the value has gone up tremendously, kind of a corporate type would say, oh, well, that's wonderful, look at all the equity that you have, right? The reality for you is this is your home of 30 years, and it's nice that there's that equity, absolutely, but if you can't pay your property tax bill, you're going to have to move, you're going to have to sell your home. You're going to have to leave your neighborhood. You're going to have to leave your community, the home that your kids grew up in, right? And so it's not just about the fact that your $200,000 house from 20 years ago is now worth $600,000. It's the fact that you're about to be displaced from the place that you love. And so one of the things that we do need to do is to identify a way to help provide relief to those long-term homeowners who, with some sort of financial test, like not making more than such and such amount per year, to help them be able to stay in their homes. Now, property tax policy, and I won't stay on this too long because it can be really, I can go on forever. It's the moment you provide benefit to one group of people, you are, so if we're saying let's provide long-term homeowners with some relief. The school district, the city, the community college district, the MWRD, they're going to get their property tax. Let's say they're collecting $10 million. They're going to collect that $10 million regardless of who's paying it. That property tax levy is going to get collected, all 10 million of it. And so the moment we say we're going to give this group a little bit more because for good reason, these are long-term homeowners, everyone else picks up the tab. That's how the property tax system works. So now of that 10 million, we're reducing $1 million's worth from long-term homes, not another $200 or $300 per year, right? And that is worth that trade-off, right? So with any property tax policy, we have to look at those trade-offs.
Okay, next question here. Your name, where you're from, and who it's directed to.
My name is Milton Davis Summit, State Representative Rashid. I just want to thank you for your hands-on with helping with property tax discount. I benefited personally from that. But my question is there any, if not, if you could direct me, is there any legal action I could take with homeowners insurance? I put in a claim with an insurance provider from it was like a hail storm, and there was other homes that put in that. But after 2 years, they finally gave the claim, but then they chose not to renew me. And I was with the insurance company since 2017, but the property was with the insurance company much longer with no claims ever. Is there any legal action for something like that?
I'm sorry that you're going through that, and it was great talking to you about the property tax exemptions yesterday. Let me take a look into it. If you need that, you can connect with Ms. Davis. I'm happy to talk to the Department of Insurance and see if there is anything under Illinois law that you're able to do. So we'll certainly look to follow up on the case and see what kind of remedies you have. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what may be available.
And we're going to wrap up with this final question from Sandra of Berwyn. With so many of us feeling so powerless with this administration, please advise us on how we can be most effective having our voices heard and make effective change.
Thank you, and again, I just want to say thank you all for being here today, and we'll stick around a little bit for any one-offs or questions. Make sure you have information on how to contact our offices. I want to circle back to Anthony there real quick. Would love to talk. We could set up a joint working group among some retirees on that, and obviously some federal purview on that with Social Security. But I think the biggest argument, right, when they call that an entitlement, right? Social Security is something that people have worked towards and earned. It's an earned benefit, and we have to continue to fight for that and show that. I always tell members of my generation who could sometimes become disenfranchised. Sometimes you hear even our peers who might say, well, we don't know if Social Security is going to be there. You have to just push back and say, that's a non-starter, right? I see how much I've already contributed to Social Security, right? It's a non-starter. And when we talk about the things we care about most, right? Economic mobility, the idea that, you know, grandparents and parents that the next generation is going to do a little bit better, access to the American dream, living up to the promise of America, right? Making sure that we're having those arguments and holding strong on a unified front to say that these are benefits are enshrined and investments in working families and the American people, right? So we have to fight for that and fight for it on every level that we can. To the question of how can you get involved? Continue advocacy. Reach out to your elected officials on all levels. Reach out to us. Reach out to your elected officials at the state level in D.C. and find ways to get involved. And also, you know, have those conversations and sharing when, you know, personal impacts are happening to people. I mean, real people are being impacted, and we still don't know the second and third order effects of all this. And I think when we are able to share those stories, educate impacts on people, right? As Devin's having impacts on people's careers, on education, on access to health care, right? So, you know, we have to continue to just be a community, look out for each other. When people are hurting, you know, try to get them the help and resources and support they can. But I think a lot of this is keep fighting, keep having those real conversations, and again, you know, uplift and educate us when things are happening. We'll figure out solutions on the state level. Make sure we partner in DC, but we have to continue to highlight the real impacts that some of these things are happening, right? And when that's felt on a personal level, and when that's felt by a neighbor, or friend, or family, sometimes that's when it hits home, right? Otherwise, it could be, you know, something people are seeing on the news or don't know what that exactly means. But again, when this stuff's, you know, these impacts are going to happen. So, like I said, when they do, you know, that support and helping each other, but also having those conversations and highlighting it. So one is we could figure out whatever we can do to bring solutions and relief, but also just to highlight that, you know, we deserve a government that works for the people, right? We deserve a government that wants to provide service to the people, right? We pay taxes, right? And the price tag of that is delivery of service, right? And robust investments in all these different sectors of our lives: public health, public safety, public education, and you know, I believe in public service, and I believe that to sit in the chair or be in the role, you have to be serious about that, right? So we have to hold those things dear. Everyone always talks about, you know, business. I don't know what business would hire someone if they sat across from them and said, I don't know if this company should exist or this job should exist, right? We'd be like, well, hold on. So we have to be people, we deserve serious professional people who are serious about serving and, again, giving people the government they deserve, the government they've earned through their hard work, their service sacrifice, paying taxes, and so demand that, demand no less.
I would just add, I think that was, I echo everything the Senator said. On an individual level, especially in the times that we're in where it's easy to feel, you know, helpless or fall into despair, just talking to your neighbors, talking to your friends. This isn't like a systemic analysis, but like, you know, there's a Harvard study that looked at happiness, like a 100-year study, longitudinal study, and it said that what brings people happiness the most is connection and relationships. So just checking on your neighbor, checking on your family, and seeing how you can help them. You know, maybe a neighbor needs a ride to the grocery store. Maybe they need someone to just talk to. So at a very individual level, just that basic connection, I would encourage everyone to do. Obviously, getting involved, can mean many other things. In volunteering at a local organization like a food pantry or a homeless shelter or in your church, getting involved in civil rights organizations, environmental organizations. There are groups doing work on all the issues we talked about, on transit, on the state budget. Every issue under the sun that government is working on, or the policy issue, there is some advocacy group somewhere that is doing work on that issue, so you can go and find them or reach out to us and say which advocacy groups are doing work on this or on that I really care about, and we can help direct you to those, and so you can reach out to them and say, how can I get involved? ACLU, for example, is one place that may have something for you to do, or Indivisible is a popular one. Of course, reaching out to your elected officials, state, federal level, but also local level, your park, your school district, your library, etc. And then, running for office. You can and should. We need more people running for office who are from the community. And so I encourage everyone to look at opportunities to get involved in elect. It could be running, or it could be seeking advisory boards, commission roles. There are many local boards and commissions that are not actually elected, but that are appointed by whoever is in charge of that local government. So you can reach out and see what committees can you serve on there. So those are some ways. And I want to say your outreach to our offices matters. There are 6,600 bills introduced, and there are a lot of things we care about, but we don't know about everything that's happening. And so when you email us or when you call us and say, hey, by the way, I want to bring your attention to this, you may think Rep. Rashid must know about that or must support that. I may not. I may not know enough that I may not know that bill was introduced, and it's going to be your email or call that leads me to go and look at that bill. Especially if it's not in committee. If it's in committee and I'm voting on it, of course I'm going to know about it. But there are thousands of bills that are not in committee, and so your calls and emails really do matter.
If I may?
Please go ahead.
Yes. First of all, gentlemen, Representative Rashid, Senator Porfio, I want to thank you. I'm Joyce Ordonez from Riverside, Illinois, and I just want to say I have never in my entire lifetime seen anything like this. We need to get rid of Trump and everyone who is backing him. None of the congressmen, none of the Republican congressmen are willing to step up. They're afraid. Okay, but I would like to also invite, I was at the hands-off protest in Oak Park on the 5th of April. It was wonderful because everyone, it was feeling the same. We had our wonderful signs, and everyone was joyous in that march. And I would like to remind everyone, on May 1st, there is going to be a day of solidarity. Get out in the streets. Everyone needs to get out. Get rid of them. And thank you so much for being here and giving us, what you're seeing from your aspect. Are you guys going to be marching with anyone on May 1st?
Ma'am, that was more than one question.
What day of the week is that? Thursday. I think we're in Springfield for session. Yeah, we are in Springfield for session that day.
Yeah.
That's a good point. There could be a Springfield one. I was at the hands-off protest in Berwyn a few weeks ago, and I absolutely echo what you said. Everyone should do their part, including, that should have been earlier on my list. Go out and protest, join these actions, and that's a great opportunity to connect with other people who have other organizing opportunities for you to get involved in.
Thank you. Thank you. And Joyce?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a really wonderful way to wrap this up. So thank you for sharing that and asking that really important question. So this does conclude our question and answer session. And before I hand it over to State Representative Abdel Nasser Rashid, on behalf of Senator Porfio, on behalf of Abdel Nasser, I want to thank you all. And I just want to take a moment now to thank the individuals who are behind the scene, really hustling for the past several weeks and days to make sure that today was a success. Between our office, Senator Porfirio's office, and Congressman Garcia's office, the staff members work night and day to just ensure that all the things that need to be in place were in place. And so I just want to thank Ingrid, Matt from Senator Porfirio's office, Jaleesa, Crystal, and my co-moderator, Adrian, for really just stepping in and just being a wonderful team throughout this. So I'm going to thank you. I will hand it over to Representative Rashid, and I do believe both Senator and Representative will be around for a few minutes afterwards. If there are any lingering questions, you can either come to myself or Adrian if you can't get hold of the Senator and the Representative. With that said, I do want to hand it over for closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to do it from here. Thank you all so much for being here. I see these as, I think this is my 4th town hall. We're going to continue to do them regularly, including our plan is to do one right after the session is over so that we can actually give a wrap-up of what we accomplished by the end of May in Springfield. Our offices are available. You might drive by my office sometimes on Cermak at 6901 West Cermak. If there's anything that you or anyone you know needs, particularly on the state level, but really on any issue, don't hesitate to reach out to us, to call our office, walk in, or email us. I think we had a very robust conversation. I don't have anything else to add. Great to see you all, and we'll be hanging around here and continuing to chat. Thank you all so much.